Hey, this is my graphics assignment 7. So for this week I have my graphic objects. So you already gave us the color, but this is including texture light, color light, and texture. So on the left is texture light. You can see this object being lit on this side and textured with a repeating texture. The middle one, which is the frigate, which I know you're tired of, but it's lit using the color light. And then you can see the highlights and the shadows on the other side. And then the boots on the right here are just a model that I found, and these are just using regular texture with no light. And these are just to showcase the different graphics objects. And these are set up here in DXApp. So the first one here, which is the frigate, I do create my shader world, but then I create a new graphic object, color light. I pass in the shader in the model, and then set the material, which is blue, and then the world for that model. Same thing with the graphic object texture. I create a texture shader, pass in the world and texture. The passing in texture is assuming that you're gonna apply that texture to all the faces. I do have a feature where I can specify not faces, meshes. And then a feature where I can specify the mesh number. So if I put 0, obviously there's only one mesh on this cube, but I can change that, and then I don't have a demonstration to prove that it works, but I can just showcase how that works. So if I scroll down to here, you'll see that it does get the mesh count of the model, and then creates an array of texture pointers equal to that amount. And then when I call set texture with the parameter for int mesh num, I just assign that value. Otherwise, if I don't pass in a value, then I just set them all equal to that texture. And then this guarantees I have control over what mesh uses what texture. And then the whole thing goes for all of them, but I based it off of your graphic object's color. So for render, it'll just do the basic binding, and then go through the list of the mesh count, and then just send the world, set the texture resource and sampler, and the render mesh call with the get context and the mesh. And then same thing for color light. I have a mesh materials now instead, and then this is a list of materials. So if I scroll down here, yeah, it's a vector array of mesh materials. And then since this includes 3 things, ambient, diffuse, and specular, these are passed in as 3 parameters, with these being passed in as each index plus 1, index plus 2, and then I skip ahead 3 since I already have the first set. And then when it actually comes time to set those materials, under render, I go through that list of meshes times 3 because there's going to be 3 vectors. But this way I can send the world, and then mesh materials index plus 1 or index plus 2, and then skip ahead plus 3 once it's rendered. So this way I set the appropriate values for ambient, diffuse, and specular. And then the other ones aren't that much different. The other one left is texture light, and this combines the two, so I have a texture array and a mesh material array. And then not only can I set the value of the texture, the mesh number of the texture, but also the mesh number of the material. So these are the 2 functions here and here, showing that either it applies it to all the meshes or individual ones here, and then set the world. And then again, this is a combination of the previous 2 where I set both the material and the texture, and then those are implemented here in DXApp. And then under render, I just have the basic parameters, setting to context, sending matrices, and sending light parameters for the ones that require light. And then all I have to do is just call render, render, and render. And then, yep, that's how I got my graphic objects working. So thanks.